What if I told you that there was an NBA superstar who could do it all? Score, pass, defend, and lead a franchise, but his career was over before it truly started. A player so naturally gifted that Kobe Bryant called himself the hardest to guard. That player was Brandon Roy. At his peak, Roy was unstoppable, a smooth, clutch, and dominant shooting guard who looked like he'd take over the league for years to come. But just as he rose to stardom, everything fell apart. His knees gave out, his body broke down, and his career ended way too soon. So what happened? How did one of the most complete guards of his generation go from an MVP caliber player to out of the NBA by 28 years old? Let's break it all down. And if you haven't, make sure to go hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more videos. But let's talk about Brandon Roy. Before Brandon Roy became a household name, he was just a kid from Seattle, Washington with big dreams. Unlike most NBA superstars, he wasn't an instant phenom. He wasn't highly recruited, and in high school, he even struggled with standardized tests which almost kept him from playing college ball. But what he had was natural talent. He played 4 years at the University of Washington, improving every single season, and by his senior season, he was an All-American, averaging 20 points per game and proving he was NBA ready. In the 2006 NBA draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves selected him 6th overall, but in a move they regret forever, they traded him to Portland for Randy Foye. This trade would change the future of the Trail Blazers franchise forever. From the moment he stepped on the court, Brandon Roy looked different. As a rookie, he averaged 16.8 points per game, 4.4 rebounds, and 4 assists per game, winning Rookie of the Year, and it really wasn't even that close in the voting. But this was just the beginning. Over the next 3 seasons, he took over the league. His 2008 and 2009 stats would be 22.6 points per game, 5.1 assists, and 4.7 rebounds. He was a 3-time All-Star during this time from 2008 until 2010, and he actually made the All-NBA second team in 2009. He had the footwork of Kobe, the composure of a veteran, and he had that clutch gene. One thing that you really can't teach players, something that is one of those intangibles that you just have to have. Portland had found their franchise guy who could bring them back to championship contention, and that's when everything started to change. The knee injuries started, and that's where the tragedy begins. Even in college, he had minor knee issues, but in the NBA, things got a lot worse. By 2010, doctors discovered something devastating. He had no more cartilage in his knees, bone on bone. No matter how much rehab or surgery he did, it just wasn't going to get better, and we've seen similar situations like this, a guy like Lonzo Ball that was out for a long time because of knee injuries as well. No matter what he did, it just seemed like nothing was getting better, and that season the pain became unbearable. He started to miss games, and when he played, he just wasn't the same. A guard of his size and his play style, his explosiveness was just gone. He couldn't play 40-plus minutes anymore, and his superstar potential was really slipping away. Despite all this, he still had one more legendary moment left in him before his career would really start to derail. April 23rd, 2011, there would be Game 4 of the first round of the NBA playoffs. The Trail Blazers were down by 23 points to the Mavericks, and their season was pretty much slipping away. Then Brandon Roy did something unbelievable. He took over the game, scoring 18 points in the fourth quarter, hitting just impossible shots, and leading them to a miracle comeback victory. The crowd was insane. His teammates couldn't believe it, and even Dirk and the Mavericks knew that they just witnessed something special. It was a reminder that Brandon Roy was a special player, but it seemed like even after this moment, we knew that his career wasn't going to be the same after this, and that might have been his last special moment, as obviously we know the Mavericks would go on to win this series, but we would still get a special moment out of Brandon Roy's career there, and we saw a glimpse of what he was and how great of a player he was going into what would end up being some of his final games in that playoff series. Now, after the 2011 season, his knees were so bad that the doctors told him that he should not play basketball anymore. And just 5 years after being drafted, he announced his retirement at age 27, leaving the basketball world stunned. One of the best young stars in the NBA, gone. Just like that. The Blazers, who had built their entire franchise around Roy, were left scrambling for answers. And for things to make it worse, in that same draft class, they also selected Greg Oden, another player whose career was ruined by injuries. They had 2 potential stars, and both of them really never got their chance to live up to their full potential. In those 5 seasons that he played after getting drafted, he was a 3-time All-Star. So he was really at the top of his league when he was playing in those seasons. There were really no years that he took a year off and just wasn't that good. He was dominant from day one, as we know, winning the Rookie of the Year and making the All-Star game in almost every other season besides that. But he wasn't giving up. In 2012, after a year of rehab, he attempted to come back with the Timberwolves, the team that actually would trade him on draft night, but it just seemed like it wasn't meant to be. He played 5 games before his knees just completely gave out, and just like that, his career was officially over. Now, when we look at what could have been, Brandon Roy on his way to become a Hall of Famer? If we look at what we know, he made 3 All-Star teams, averaged 22 points per game in his prime, led the Blazers to the playoffs multiple times as well, at just 26 years old. Now, this is almost the age that Luka is right now. Imagine if Luka just would end up retiring in the next year or 2 because his knees were completely done. Now, he may not have been at that level at 30 plus points per game, but 22 points per game is very, very good. So imagine a star like that, a guy like maybe Ja Morant would just retire now after his knees gave out. Very shocking to the whole NBA and basketball community as well, especially with such a young star retiring so early. And who knows what would have happened if he stayed healthy? Maybe a future MVP candidate. Maybe he could have led that Blazers team to deeper playoff runs. He was one of the best shooting guards of his era during that time. And even Kobe Bryant, like I said before, one of the best to ever play the game, feared Brandon Roy. But his injuries derailed his career, and unfortunately, there's nothing he could really do about it. Now, after this, he stepped away from the NBA spotlight, but he never really left the game. In 2017, he became a high school basketball coach in Seattle, leading his team to a state championship in his first season. And even though he couldn't reach his full potential as a player, he was still making his impact on the next generation. And that's what makes Brandon Roy's story bittersweet. A superstar who really never got to show us his full greatness, but still leaving a big impact on everyone that he played with or coached in all of basketball. So let me know down below, what do you guys think? Do you think Brandon Roy is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, what-ifs in NBA history? A career robbed from him with nothing he could really do about it, playing 5 fantastic seasons and then having to give it all up after that. How good do you think he could have been if his knees held up? Let me know down below what you guys think, and like I said before, if you haven't subscribed, make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and also hit that notification bell for every new video that we're uploading almost every single day. And I'll see you guys in the next one.